It was a late autumn afternoon, the kind that drapes the world in a heavy blanket of gray and silence. Rain had been falling all day, tapping gently against my window as I sat at my desk, books spread out in front of me. I was studying, or at least trying to. My mind wandered easily on days like this, lost in the rhythm of raindrops and the faint scent of wet leaves drifting through the slightly open window. I lived alone in a small, rented house near the university. The walls were quiet, too quiet at times, and although silence can be comforting, on days like this, it pressed heavily on my chest. My classmates at the university rarely noticed me. If they did, it was only to whisper or laugh at how quiet I was, how reserved I seemed. I didn't fight back. I never did. I was the kind of girl who preferred the company of books to people, though deep down, the loneliness ached like a bruise I could not heal. That afternoon, as I leaned over a notebook filled with half-written notes, a sudden noise tore me away from my thoughts. A sharp, unsettling sound echoed above, like something scraping, dragging, and shifting on the roof tiles. For a moment, my lungs froze, refusing to take in air. My pen slipped from my fingers, and all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. The noise came again, a creak, a crack, and the unmistakable rattle of tiles shifting under pressure. I sat frozen in my chair, staring at the ceiling as though I could see through it. My imagination painted pictures I didn't want to see. Branches snapping in the wind, an intruder climbing across the roof, or worse. It took me several long moments to gather the courage to stand. My legs felt heavy, stiff, as though fear itself had wrapped chains around me. I moved slowly, step by step, toward the staircase that led up to the small attic space beneath the roof. Each creak of the wooden stairs made me flinch. The house suddenly felt alive, breathing with me, holding its breath when I held mine. When I reached the small window in the attic, the sound came again, sharper this time, and I froze. But there was something else now. Soft, pitiful, almost drowned by the rain. A cry. Not just any cry. A meow. I pressed my ear closer to the window. The tiny sound pierced straight through me. My fear melted away, replaced by something different. Concern, tenderness, an ache I couldn't ignore. Without another thought, I pulled open the window and climbed carefully onto the slick, rain-soaked roof. The air outside was sharp and damp, clinging to my skin. My shoes slipped slightly on the wet tiles, but I steadied myself and listened again. The cry was clearer now, desperate, fragile. I followed it slowly, my eyes scanning across the roof until I finally saw her. A small bundle of fur, drenched by the cold autumn rain, trembling as she pressed herself against the tiles. Her tiny face was lifted upward, mouth open in a weak, sorrowful meow. She was no bigger than the span of my two hands, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. I had no idea how she had gotten up there. Perhaps she had been searching for shelter, or maybe she had been abandoned, left to wander and climb without her mother to guide her. The sight of her pierced me deeper than I expected. She was alone, soaked, and so impossibly small, just like I had felt most of my life. "Hey, little one. It's okay. I'm here." I crouched carefully, extending my hand toward her. At first, she shrank back, her body shivering, claws scraping against the slippery tiles. But then she looked at me, really looked, and I could see the trust forming in her frightened eyes. Slowly, with a desperate kind of courage, she stepped closer. When she finally let me scoop her up into my arms, I felt her tiny body trembling against my chest. She was so cold, her fur plastered against her fragile frame, her heartbeat racing wildly. I cradled her tightly, shielding her from the rain with my jacket as I hurried back inside. Once safely in my room, I wrapped her in a soft towel, rubbing gently to dry her. She meowed softly, weaker now, but I could tell she was already beginning to relax in the warmth of my touch. I fed her with what little I had, a small dish of milk I warmed on the stove. Watching her lap at it hungrily brought tears to my eyes. That night, as the storm continued outside, I sat on the floor with her curled up in my lap. She purred faintly, her tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm with my own breathing. For the first time in a long while, the silence in my room didn't feel empty. It felt alive. The days that followed were different. I found myself rushing home after classes, no longer dreading the loneliness of my little house. She was always waiting for me, her eyes lighting up as soon as she saw me. I named her Willow, after the tree that bends but never breaks, because somehow that name felt like her, and me too. At the university, the bullying didn't stop overnight. They still whispered, still laughed at how quiet I was, how reserved I seemed. I didn't fight back. I never did. I was the kind of girl who preferred the company of books to people, though deep down, the loneliness ached like a bruise I could not heal. She became my confidant, my companion, my reason to smile on days I wanted to hide. I would read aloud to her as she curled on my bed, her tail flicking gently. I would pour out my fears and secrets to her, knowing she could never repeat them, but also knowing she listened in her own way. Through her, I began to feel braver. I started to believe that maybe being quiet wasn't a flaw, but a part of me that could still hold love and strength. Willow, the little kitten I had found crying on the rooftop, had shown me that even the smallest voice, the faintest cry, deserves to be heard and deserves to be answered with kindness. One kitten, one rescue, one friendship that healed two lonely hearts.